It is 11 p.m. here on the East Coast, and we're live with breaking news. The shameful racist comments by the President of the United States in an Oval Office meeting on immigration, complaining about immigrants from what he called shithole countries like Haiti, El Salvador, and African nations. Going on to say, quote, "Why do we need more Haitians? Take them out." The Haitian president summoning the top U.S. diplomat to discuss that tonight. Not only does the White House not deny any of this, they think it's good for them and will help them with their base. Let's talk about it now. CNN political analyst John Avlon is here, political commentators Margaret Hoover and Keith Boykin, and conservative commentator Carrie Sheffield. Margaret, I have to ask you as a Republican here, what does this mean for the party? What does this all mean to you? What do you think?
I mean, my first reaction, I suppose, if you ask me about the party, is this is the farthest thing from the ideals that I think the Republican Party has always intended to espouse. And frankly, from the founding of the party, which the Republican Party was founded as the party of abolition and suffrage, how far we have fallen. But this is beyond party, because this is about our country, Don. And this is actually even worse. It's about the American creed and about a real disappointment and sadness that I feel that the President of the United States doesn't believe in the American creed, which is that it doesn't matter who you are as an individual, where you're from, what your skin color is, what your religion is, what your gender is, any other defining thing about you other than who you are, what you bring to the table as an individual, and that you have this God-given right and opportunity in this country to apply those God-given skills and that spark to the marketplace, to our communities, and that you're judged simply on that and no other marker. And that is the American creed. And if the American president doesn't believe that, then we're in a world of hurt.
And we're in a world of hurt. This is a president who keeps finding ways to hit new lows. And it debases the office. It debases our history. It debases our country. And he seemingly doesn't care. They don't deny this. And their surrogates out tonight defending it. The fact that folks in the White House are saying this is good for the base is the worst kind of cynicism. I mean, it transcends politics. This is pure ugliness. And it hurts our country on the world stage because it absolutely is an insult to our immigrant tradition. But it's from a president who hasn't read a book, who doesn't understand or seem curious about American history, and shows outright contempt for immigrant communities consistently, over and over. And this statement is straight up racist, no question about it.
Here's what I want to know. From the Republicans who were in the room, Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, David Perdue, Kevin McCarthy, Bob Goodlatte, and Mario Diaz-Balart. Why didn't they say anything?
For the same reason they didn't say anything when the president made his comments about Charlottesville, same reason they didn't say anything when he pardoned Joe Arpaio, for the same reason they didn't say anything when the president endorsed Roy Moore, even after he said that he supported slavery. We have a party that is complicit with everything that Donald Trump is doing. Yeah. And I see Margaret shaking her head over there. I understand, Margaret, you're part of the tradition of the Republican Party.
But Donald
Trump is the Republican Party now. And Donald Trump is a representation of what the Republican Party will be going forward. And the problem is, this is a very short-sighted policy or perspective from the president, because demographically, yes, you can win a debate here for a year or two, maybe even 5 or 10 years. Yeah. But the country, 2044, whites will no longer be the majority of the country. All right. Which means that you really have to figure out how you're going to build a country where you have a president that represents all Americans, not just the.
Hold on, because I want to get Carrie in, but I think Margaret should defend her.
Well, I know personally of the people in the room, of the people you held up, like Mario Diaz-Balart, Lindsey Graham, Tom Cotton, who I know personally, I don't think, none of these people actually believe what he said. Well, we don't know. I mean, we don't have the full transcript of what everybody did. I would imagine Mario Diaz-Balart vigorously shaking his head at the very minimum, right? This is the minimum, guys. No, but come on. I mean, there is no come on. Look, guys, we don't know. Okay, so let's not litigate something that didn't happen. But I'm just saying, let's go to his Twitter feed, because I know a lot of the Republicans in the room do not believe what that president said.
Stand up and condemn it.
No one has said anything. Who was in the
right? Well, and I think that yes, it's important to note that all of this right now is secondhand information. I'm not going to defend what has been reported in terms of the phraseology. I agree. As a person from Utah, I love Mia Love. She's spoken out and said, if this is true, these statements, that it's hurtful. And I agree with that in terms of rhetorically. That said, I have not heard said at the table that the president according to the secondhand information as well, said he would welcome immigrants from Asia. So he is open to people coming from other countries.
This is not good.
Can I please finish? No. Can I please continue?
Okay.
So this really has to do more with the broader, if you dig deeper here, to the question of, is our immigration policy based on skills? Is it based on merit? Or is it based on natural disasters? Is it based on war? And studies show that immigrants who are kept closer to their origin, it's better for them. Not only is it better for the immigrant, it is also better for.
But is that? But are you okay?
To your origin.
Are you okay though? And listen, we can debate all that, but that's
closer to the war-torn zone, closer to the natural disaster. It means it's better for the immigrant.
But that's not what the president said. The president said, "Why do we have to take these people?" And I'm paraphrasing, from shithole countries. He didn't say any of the things that you said.
Yeah.
As we all know, Trump is a very blunt individual, and so it's up to.
No. I think it's important. Hold on. I'm going to let you respond after this.
I am not defending.
Let me play this because you're saying similar things to what is being said on conservative media and also over at the Fox channel, the other cable channel, the Trump channel. Here it is.
If it's true, this is how the forgotten men and women in America talk at the bar. This is how Trump relates to people. If you're at a bar and you're in Wisconsin and you're thinking they're bringing in a bunch of Haiti people or El Salvadorians or people from Niger, this is how some people talk. Is it graceful? No. Is it polite or delicate? Absolutely not. Is it a little offensive? Of course it is. But you know what? This doesn't move the needle at all. This is who Trump is. He doesn't care. He shoots from the hip. And if he offends some people, fine. There's so many more offensive things that are happening in this world.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
This is utterly shameless that people would be such partisan hacks as to find a way to justify and rationalize this, and they will hang their heads in shame when they look back on that clip in a few years, because it's utterly indefensible. You know, you talked about the American tradition of immigration. It's about the Statue of Liberty. It's about bringing in people from war-torn areas. And when the immigration laws were changed in 1924, it was to discriminate folks like my grandparents. And that's the American story, and that's why we need to think a little bit bigger and condemn this unqualified. And when people say it's the difference between policy and rhetoric, unfortunately, what these statements show is that the policies being advanced by this administration with immigration have a racial animus to them.
John,
whatever strenuous opposition to that has been revealed. And
John,
we need to deal with it.
Carrie, let me ask you this before you respond, though. Let me ask you this before you respond.
The libertarian economist.
Carrie.
What Milton Friedman said about immigration was, you can either have open borders or a welfare state. You cannot have both. That was Milton.
That's not racist.
No, it's not. No, it is not. Absolutely, it's not. No, it's
not. That's a racist comment. I just don't think it has anything to do with the conversation.
I was going to ask you, what does open borders have to do with calling countries shitholes?
It has to do with the fact that according to...
But let me ask you then. Let me ask you, do you agree? No. I'm going to let you finish, but I want to the clip before we get too far from the clip and what he said, and you said similar sentiments. But can we agree that the Oval Office is not a locker room? Are you okay with that in the Oval Office?
Well, as I said at the beginning, as a girl from Utah, I agree with Mia Love that this rhetoric, I agree. I want to see a shining city on the hill. I want to see the language of Reagan, and I hope that the president will adopt that. Okay. I hope that he will learn. I will say on the issue of welfare, so this is in the Washington Post. According to the National Academy of Sciences, 58% of immigrants are on some form of welfare. This is a problem. This is what Milton Friedman is talking about. So if you want to return to the roots of conservative understanding of welfare, of having basically a debt to GDP policy that is rational and not based on emotion. That is the problem.
Republican strategist Frank Luntz tweeted out tonight, and I just retweeted it, 43% of these immigrants from these so-called shithole countries actually have bachelor's degrees, and compared to 33% of Americans in this country. So they're actually better educated than the people who actually live in this country. Yeah. So don't try to slander them by saying that they're all welfare recipients and they're uneducated. And that's a bunch of racist baloney too.
And for God's sake,
for one time, let us have a president who lifts us up instead of brings us down. This is what's so disturbing about the rhetoric of Donald Trump. I've seen a lot of presidents, I've covered a lot of presidents. I have never seen a president of any party who has been so divisive purposely as this president has, with no intention of trying to unite the country.
And the only, Nixon's tapes are an embarrassment to the nation. We never thought we'd see it broadcast in real time in our time, given America today. Whatever stats about immigration, we have more Nobel Prize winners, disproportionately immigrants. You look at new company founders, the entrepreneurial heart of America, disproportionately immigrants. So I think trying to dress this up as a policy conversation or associated with the welfare state, I think really doesn't deal with the heart of what was the ugliness that was said by the President of the United States in the White House.
And that's also, let's get to this then. That is why this whole talking point that this is about economics and not race is false. Yeah. If you actually look at the numbers and read the numbers and do some research, this is not about economics. This is about flat-out racism.
Yeah, and when he says, I want more Norwegians, what's that about?
Yeah. And when he says, I want more Asian Americans, what's that about?
It's
and
about
I agree
the model
with you.
minority myth. Have you never heard of that before? Have you never heard of the
so,
model minority
so are you
myth?
saying that Asians,
that's a form of racism too. It doesn't. It's an insult to. It's an insult to Asian Americans to suggest that they somehow are the only race that's acceptable to come in, but other races are not, because that's suggesting that Asian Americans are on a pedestal that most Asian Americans don't necessarily find to be a flattering portrayal.
I think what Tom Cotton and other Republicans have said with the rubric that they're wanting to have is to have an immigration system that is based on skills and merit and what you are bringing in, whether that's someone coming in from Senegal or from South America or wherever. It should be based on merit. It should be a colorblind test.
That's not what the president said.
Yeah, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Carrie, I applaud.
Yes.
You guys, what Carrie's trying to do though is keep it on policy, because that's what we would all like to do. Okay, that's like
that's not what the president
alternative
did.
universe where we would
That's not
like.
what the
I just like to
president
give her
did.
credit. That's what she's trying to do. Okay, I don't think she's trying to excuse this bad behavior.
I agree with you.
But I don't think we can have that policy argument in the face of the kind of ugliness you see from the President of the United States, because it isn't honest about what he said and why he said it. And so it's hard to, and this is the problem, is that he then undermines his ability to be effective in a policy front by speaking this way.
Sure. Well, and so, but here, and this is the problem, is because it's the no more Mr. Nice conservative problem. And Bill Maher identified this very astutely in 2016, which was that when the Republicans who were polite and kind, like a Mitt Romney or a John McCain, who spoke like statesmen, who spoke eloquently, who didn't say offensive and flamboyant and aggressive and things that were hurtful, those people were demonized. They were dehumanized by the mainstream media, and that's why President Trump was able to do what he did in terms of this rhetoric.
I'm not following what you're saying.
I think what Carrie's saying
You don't remember
is that
Bill Maher saying
presidents, none of these Republicans who could get elected, they couldn't even get arrested. Trump was the Republican who got elected. But let's remember that Trump got elected with 78,000 votes in 3 states against a weak Republican candidate and a number of other dynamics. So let's not say that this is the key to Republican success. It is not. It is the key to demise of really look, this is not the American creed. This is not the American religion. This is something that unifies and brings our country together, and he is not doing that.
Anybody else? Because I'm going to go to break, because I have so much to say and I have so much to get to about why this president was elected, why he said what he said. Everyone keeps pretending that it's about economics and it's about the worker who is voiceless in the Midwest. It's not about. We all know.
No, don't say he got elected because
that's a throwaway. That's a throwaway.
Yes,
it's
entirely.
No,
really
not
is a
entirely, but
throwaway.
it is a big part of how we got, because it's for people who did not prioritize racism. Are you going to tell me during this election that he didn't say racist things or exhibit racist behavior?
Even
So
if you
prioritize racism in any way, how could you support this person if you prioritize that? So I can't. If someone says something about women or something about any minority group or any person, if someone calls out someone's wife and compares them and says, my wife is prettier than your wife, that sort of behavior. If you say, what do you have to lose? If you call NFL players sons of bitches, if you say people should be killed, Mexicans are rapists, and then you say people should be killed, and then they're exonerated, then that means that you looked at your pocketbook of whatever priority you had above racism,
John,
and you placed it there, and you kept pushing it down and making excuses for it. And sadly, women, especially women of color and black people and Hispanics and brown people and Muslims, don't have that luxury to do it. We'll be right back.